In football, the topic is Africa, and the idea is a global perspective or a global dimension of Africa and Africans. And we're talking to Dr. Kambon and Sister Thornton. Let me, Dr. Kambon, raise one of the important issues that I think that we have to deal with, and that is, since you are a psychologist, let's have you to give us some kind of an assessment on the psychology of the African today and the impact that discrimination, especially in the Americas, and of course there's discrimination almost everywhere where the African is, the impact that this has had psychologically upon him as a psychologist. How would you look at that?
Well, I think that the barrier confronting the African world is global white supremacy. And I think that it unfortunately has an adverse impact on our people in terms of global white supremacy being in control of the institutions that ultimately indoctrinate people about the social reality in which they live. And given that, that means that our people in America, throughout the diaspora, as well as throughout the continent of Africa, have been influenced by Eurocentric control of our institutions in those societies. And those institutions ultimately translate for us, define for us, our self-identity, our cultural identity, our feeling of our impact on the world, our feeling of our own self-determination. And I think to the degree that we are Europeanized effectively by those institutional control is the degree to which we will not be able to exert ourselves or empower ourselves as African people and exert an African survival thrust throughout the global African world. So I think that that's a great challenge for us. I may be presenting it in a certain mild fashion, but it's really probably one of the greatest challenges confronting the African world globally, is casting off the psychology of Eurocentric domination of our people, and then to assert our authentic Africanity as the cultural framework for the power base to allow African people to regain control of our destiny in the world.
Sister Thornton, you know, it's almost as Mr. Du Bois said almost a century ago, that the major question is still one of what? The color line, and et cetera. But now, as an educator and a person who has the responsibility of trying to take this information that the two of you are very much aware of back into another setting, into the school systems and into colleges and et cetera, what do you find to be the major challenge in doing that?
Well, I find that the administration of the college institutions is a major challenge, and basically the textbooks that are used. I run a child care program on a college campus, and for me, the major challenge is to get the young people to understand from where they come and what their challenges are and why, okay, I'm going to study, but if you don't understand from where you come, what are you going to study? Who are you going to give your services to? Who are going to pay you? And who are you going to charge to pay you? So that's the issue, to get it to the people inside the school system. The administrations, they want everything to be easy and simple, but it is not that way. It's very, very difficult to break the barrier. But I work with young people, but they don't really know. They have not been socialized yet into the culture. So it's easier to work with them. It's easier for them to see. They aren't afraid. They know if you tell them something, they will repeat it the way in which you say it. But once you get a little older and you become socialized into the culture, and you see who your enemies are, and you know that you are a small group, a large group of people, you become fearful. And fear is a major, major enemy of our people. And you have to remove fear from our people. You really have to do. One of our major educators who did not come through the public school system, but who was an educator at heart, was Harriet Tubman. She had no fear. She had courage. She went against the grain, and that's what we're doing in ASCAC. ASCAC also has a youth component, to which, and you know that in order for us to take this information forward, because it'll die with us if we don't give it to our young people. So we have a youth component, which we give this information to our youth. But it's not about just intellectualizing it. It's also about living it. Because once you get the information from the research, then you have to, we will say, well, okay, this is real or not real. Because once you put it into practice, then you will know whether it's real or not real. You understand?
Yes, ma'am. And you know, Dr. Kambon, as a leader of the African Studies Department on an historically black institution of higher education, what are some of the receptions that you've had dealing with the perception of what you are doing?
Well, you know that old adage, the truth will set you free. I have found throughout my almost 30 years as a professor on a college campus and training our young people is that knowledge is empowering and it transforms you. The lack of information can oppress you, and so I think that's the dilemma that we're faced with as a people. And so I find that the more truth that our young people encounter about the truth of our history, the truth of the socio-cultural forces that dominate and oppress us, the more they become knowledgeable of that, the more it empowers them. They're able to begin to focus their studies in a way that's going to prepare them to become a self-determining force in our community. And so I find that it truly works. Knowledge is empowering, it is power, and that it feeds on itself. The more information that they get, if it's authentic information, grounded in African-centered authenticity, then they're going to want more, and they're going to pursue more. They'll become self-initiative in pursuing that, and I think our future looks good to the degree that we can spread that procedure about throughout our schools. But unfortunately, our historically black schools are deficient in the emphasis that they place on African studies. And so we still have a job to do in challenging those institutions to become true African-centered institutions because their constituency is still predominantly African American.
Story.
As a teacher of teachers, and basically those teachers who teach in the public school system, they have major challenges ahead of them, and they're facing very large class sizes, predominantly of our people of color. And I say to them, I said, you go into your classroom and you close your door, and you realize that you are either a revolutionary or a perpetuator of a status quo. So if you're going to change minds, if you want an easy place in your classroom, you have to give people the truth. That will touch their heart and their souls, and then they will be able to listen to you. If you put them in if you put a large group of people in a very small space, we will aggress on each other. So you have to fight the administration. You have to tell them we need larger spaces, we need more information, we need our images in the textbooks, because if we don't have that, they're not going to listen to us. They're not going to believe us. They don't want to hear anything that's not relevant. So when it becomes relevant, your job is much easier.
Okay, very good. And as we make preparations for this second commercial break, we can almost say that it's the same argument that we've heard for the last 30 years.
Nothing
in the 60s we heard it, 70s we heard it, and of course we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.
Hi, this is Sarah Evans.
Dr. Kambon